I'd been pouring wine at Romano's for 3 years, and I'd learned one essential rule: never look the dangerous men in the eye. That night, I broke it. The private dining room upstairs was reserved for what my manager called special clients, the kind who arrived in black SUVs with tinted windows, whose security swept the room before they entered, whose credit cards never declined no matter how many bottles of Chateau Margaux they ordered. I wasn't supposed to work those tables. I was too curious, management said, too likely to ask questions, but Maria called in sick, and desperation makes managers flexible. Table 7, my manager hissed, shoving a tray of appetizers into my hands. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't make eye contact. Get in, serve, get out. I nodded, smoothing my black uniform, and pushed through the doors. The room went silent when I entered. 6 men sat around the table, 5 in expensive suits. One who made the suits look cheap by comparison. He sat at the head, his presence filling the space like smoke, thick and suffocating. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. Sharp jaw, aristocratic nose, and eyes so blue they looked like frozen lakes. Cold, deadly. Dante Moretti. I didn't know his name yet, but I knew what he was. You don't grow up in South Boston without learning to recognize predators. Across from him sat 3 Chinese men in crisp business attire, their expressions carved from stone. Between them, a translator, nervous, sweating through his collar, gestured frantically. Tell them the terms are non-negotiable, Dante said, his voice low and smooth, like expensive whiskey sliding down your throat before it burns. The translator spoke in halting Mandarin. One of the Chinese men interrupted sharply, his tone clipped and dismissive. The translator paled. He says you insult them with this offer. The percentage is unacceptable. They will not. Then we're done here. Dante didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. I set down the appetizers with trembling hands, trying to be invisible. The Chinese delegate stood, his companions following suit. They spoke rapidly among themselves, Mandarin flowing like water, sharp and decisive. I caught fragments, Taidila, too low. 他不尊重我们. He doesn't respect us. 浪费时间, waste of time. My mouth opened before my brain could stop it. 等一下, I said quietly. Wait a moment. Every head in the room turned toward me. My manager's words echoed in my skull. Don't speak unless spoken to. But the Chinese delegates had frozen, staring at me with surprise, and Dante Moretti's ice-blue eyes locked onto mine like a wolf spotting prey. 你会说中文? One of the men asked, incredulous. You speak Chinese. 会一点, I replied, my heart hammering. A little, that was a lie. I'd spent 6 years in Beijing, studying linguistics before my world fell apart, and I ended up here, pouring wine for men who could buy and sell lives. The delegate's expression shifted, something like respect flickering across his features. 告诉这个意大利人, he said carefully, 我们不是不愿意合作，但这个条件侮辱了我们的价值。如果他真的想要合作，他需要表现出诚意。Tell this Italian we're not unwilling to cooperate, but these terms insult our value. If he truly wants partnership, he needs to show sincerity. I stood there, frozen between 2 worlds, the service door behind me, escape so close and Dante Moretti in front of me, studying me like I was a puzzle he intended to solve. Well, his voice cut through my paralysis. Are you going to translate, or do I need to find someone who will? The threat wasn't subtle. Neither was the interest in his eyes. I swallowed hard. He says they're not opposed to working with you. But the percentage you offered? They feel it doesn't reflect their value in this partnership. They want you to show good faith. Dante's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind those frozen eyes. And what would constitute good faith? I should have stopped there, should have backed away, returned to my station, forgotten this room existed. Instead, I found myself translating, my voice steady even as my hands shook. The negotiation that followed lasted 45 minutes. I stood beside Dante Moretti's chair, translating nuances the nervous interpreter had butchered, catching subtleties in tone and implication that turned the tide of conversation. The Chinese delegates relaxed incrementally, their body language shifting from defensive to engaged. Dante never touched me, but I felt the weight of his attention like a physical thing, burning against my skin. When they finally shook hands, a deal worth millions, I'd learn later. The senior delegate nodded to me with genuine respect. 你很有天赋, he said. You're very talented. Shisha, I whispered. They left through the private exit, security flanking them. I turned to leave, to escape back to the safety of anonymity, but Dante's voice stopped me cold. Not you. I froze. My hand on the door handle. Turn around. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but there was nowhere to run to, not really. Men like Dante Moretti owned the city. They owned the streets, the police, the politicians. They owned people. I turned slowly. He stood now, unfolding from his chair with predatory grace. He was taller than I'd realized, easily 6'2", his suit tailored to emphasize broad shoulders and a lean, powerful frame. He moved around the table toward me, each step deliberate, and I backed against the door. What's your name? He asked, stopping just close enough that I could smell his cologne, cedar and smoke and something darker. Elena. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Elena Costa. Elena. He tested my name like wine, rolling it over his tongue. You just saved me from walking away from a $20 million deal. I was just translating. No. He stepped closer, and I pressed harder against the door, my fingers finding the handle. You were reading them, their body language, their tone, the things they weren't saying. That interpreter was butchering more than grammar. He was destroying context. I said nothing. His proximity was overwhelming, suffocating. Where did you learn Mandarin? He asked. Beijing. I studied there. Linguistics? I nodded, surprised he'd guessed. And now you're pouring wine. It wasn't a question. His eyes traveled over my face, studying, cataloging. What happened? That's none of your business. The corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. Bold, I like that. He reached past me and I flinched. But he only pulled a card from his jacket pocket, pressing it into my palm. His fingers brushed mine and electricity shot up my arm. Come to this address tomorrow. 10 a.m. I have work. Not anymore. He stepped back, giving me space to breathe, but his eyes never left mine. You work for me now. I didn't agree to $20,000 a month, plus expenses. All you have to do is translate when I need you to translate. He tilted his head, and for the first time, I saw something besides cold calculation in his expression. Genuine curiosity. Unless you prefer making minimum wage and tips. My mouth went dry. $20,000 was more than I made in 6 months. Why? I whispered. Because you're useful to me. He turned away, dismissing me, returning to his seat and the tablet waiting there, and because I pay for talent when I find it. 10 a.m., Elena. Don't be late. I left the room on shaking legs. In the bathroom, I locked myself in a stall and stared at the business card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering, Dante Moretti, Moretti Enterprises, no phone number. Just an address in Beacon Hill, the wealthiest neighborhood in Boston. I should have torn it up. Should have walked away, quit my job if necessary, moved to another city. Instead, I tucked it into my pocket, because I needed the money. Because I was drowning in student debt and my mother's medical bills. Because my sister was still in high school, and someone had to pay for her future. That's what I told myself, as I left Romano's that night. Walking home through streets I knew like the back of my hand. But when I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, it wasn't the money I thought about. It was ice blue eyes and a voice like smoke. And the way his fingers had felt against mine. Electric. Dangerous. Inevitable. Like falling off a cliff and realizing, halfway down, that you'd jumped on purpose. The Beacon Hill. Address led to a brownstone that probably cost more than I'd earn in 3 lifetimes. Stood on the sidewalk at 9:55 a.m., clutching my bag and second-guessing every decision that had brought me here. A black SUV idled at the curb, its windows tinted dark. Security cameras tracked my every movement. I'd barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Dante Moretti's face, heard his voice. You work for me now, not a request. A declaration. The door opened before I could knock. A man stood there, mid-40s, built like a tank, with a scar running from his left eyebrow to his jaw. He wore a suit that barely contained his bulk, and his eyes swept over me with professional assessment. "Elena Costa," I nodded, not trusting my voice. "Inside. Mr. Moretti is expecting you." The interior was exactly what I'd imagined. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that belonged in museums. But it wasn't gaudy. Everything had been chosen with precision, with purpose. Like the man who owned it. The security guard, because that's clearly what he was, led me through a hallway to a study lined with leather-bound books. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a private garden, and behind a massive mahogany desk sat Dante Moretti. He looked up from his laptop, those ice-blue eyes finding mine, and I felt it again. That electric charge, that sense of falling. "Punctual," he said approvingly. "I like that. Sit." I sat in the leather chair across from him, my back straight, hands folded in my lap. He studied me for a long moment, then closed his laptop. "Did you eat breakfast?" The question caught me off guard. "I know." He pressed a button on his desk. "Marco, bring coffee and pastries to the study." "That's not necessary. You can't work for me if you're distracted by hunger." He leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "Let's establish some ground rules, Elena. First, when you're with me, you eat when I eat. You'll be traveling, attending meetings, possibly working irregular hours. I need you sharp. I haven't agreed to... Second, everything you hear, see, or translate in my presence is confidential. You don't discuss it with friends, family, or anyone else. Ever. The penalty for breaking this rule is severe." The temperature in the room dropped. I swallowed hard. Third, when I call, you come. If you're unavailable, you let me know immediately. I don't tolerate being left waiting. You can't possibly expect... Fourth. He stood, moving around the desk with that same predatory grace from last night. "You'll sign a non-disclosure agreement and a contract. My lawyers prepared them this morning. You have questions, ask them. But you don't leave this building without signing." He stopped in front of me, looking down, and I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. "What if I say no?" I asked quietly. "Then you walk out that door, return to your minimum wage job, and forget this conversation ever happened." He paused. "But we both know you won't. You're very sure of yourself. I'm sure of what I saw last night. You're brilliant, you think fast, and you're desperate." His eyes softened fractionally. "I had you investigated, Elena. Your mother's cancer treatment, your sister's tuition, your student debt. You're barely surviving. I'm offering you a way out." Fury burned through my chest. "You had no right." "I had every right. I don't hire people without knowing who they are." He crossed his arms. "But I also don't judge them for their circumstances. You did what you had to do. Now I'm giving you a better option." Marco entered with a tray, coffee in a silver carafe, pastries from an Italian bakery I couldn't afford, fresh fruit. "Eat," Dante commanded. "Then we'll talk details." I wanted to refuse. Wanted to throw the coffee in his face and walk out with my dignity intact. Instead, I poured coffee with trembling hands and took a pastry because I was starving, and pride doesn't fill an empty stomach. Dante returned to his chair, watching me eat with unnerving focus. "Why me?" I finally asked. "You could hire a professional translator, someone with experience in whatever it is you do. Business consulting," he said smoothly. "Import-export primarily." That was a lie, and we both knew it. "I could," he agreed. "But professional translators ask questions. They have ethics clauses and recording devices and conflicts of interest. You, Elena, are resourceful, desperate enough to be pragmatic, and smart enough to know when to keep your mouth shut." He sipped his coffee. "Plus, you have a gift. The way you read those men last night, their micro-expressions, their tone shifts, that's not something you can teach." "I studied linguistic anthropology. It's what I do." "Did," he corrected gently. "What you do now is pour wine and dodge handsy customers. Unless you accept my offer. The contracts were thick, 40 pages of legal jargon. But certain clauses stood out. Salary, $20,000 per month. Availability, on call, minimum 48 hours notice for scheduled meetings. Confidentiality, binding in perpetuity, with financial and legal penalties for breach. Term: 1 year, renewable by mutual consent, and buried near the end. Employee acknowledges working with sensitive business information and accepts all associated risks. What risks? I asked, looking up. Dante's expression was unreadable. I have competitors. Some of them play dirty. If you're seen with me, if you're identified as someone important to my operations, you could become a target. A target for what? Surveillance, intimidation, in extreme cases, leverage. He said it so calmly, like he was discussing stock portfolios. That's why you'll have security when necessary, and why you'll follow my instructions without question. I protect what's mine, Elena. Always. Something about the way he said mine made my stomach flip. This is insane, I whispered. This is business. He slid a pen across the desk, and you need the money more than you need safe. He was right. God help me. He was right. I signed. Dante watched me write my name, and when I looked up, something dark and satisfied flickered in his eyes. Good, he murmured. Now we can get to work. He stood, buttoning his jacket. We have a meeting in 2 hours. Wear this. He opened a closet I hadn't noticed, revealing designer clothes, dresses, suits, heels, all in my size. How did you... I'm thorough. He selected a black sheath dress and matching heels. Professional but not memorable. You're my translator, not arm candy. Understand? I nodded, taking the clothes with numb fingers. Marco will show you to a room where you can change. We leave in 90 minutes. He was already typing on his phone, dismissing me. And Elena? Welcome to my world. Try not to get lost. I changed in a guest room that was bigger than my entire apartment. The dress fit perfectly. Tailored, expensive, elegant without being flashy. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. I looked like I belonged in Dante Moretti's world. That should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like putting on armor. Marco drove us to a restaurant in the North End, Italian, family-owned, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone. Except they didn't just know Dante. They feared him. I saw it in the way the owner rushed to greet us, the way servers disappeared when he glanced in their direction, the way the dining room fell silent when we walked through. We were led to a private room where 2 men waited. Russians, I realized when they started speaking. Dante conducted the entire meeting in English and Russian, not needing me at all. I sat beside him, silent and watchful, trying to understand. This wasn't about translation. This was about presence, about testing me, about showing his world and seeing if I'd run. The Russians left satisfied, and Dante turned to me. You did well. I didn't do anything. Exactly. He stood, offering his hand. You were calm, professional, and you didn't panic. That's harder than it looks. I took his hand, a mistake. His fingers were warm, strong, and I felt that electricity again, racing up my arm straight to my chest. He felt it too. I saw recognition flash in his eyes before he released me. Come on, he said quietly. I'll take you home. But as we walked to the car, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. You made a mistake, Elena Costa. Dante Moretti destroys everything he touches. Run while you still can. I stopped walking, ice flooding my veins. Dante noticed immediately. What is it? I showed him the message. His expression went from curious to murderously cold in a heartbeat. He took my phone. His jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. Marco, he said softly, dangerously, we've been compromised. I want to know who sent this. And I want to know within the hour. Yes. Sir? Dante looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something besides calculation. I saw fury, and beneath it, concern. Get in the car. Elena, you're coming with me. It's not safe for you to go home. What? No, now. He didn't yell. He didn't have to. The command in his voice was absolute, and that's when I realized exactly how much danger I'd walked into, because Dante Moretti didn't just do business. He waged war, and I'd just become a target. The safe house wasn't what I expected. I'd imagined something cold and industrial, concrete walls, minimal furniture, a place to hide. Instead, Dante brought me to a penthouse apartment overlooking Boston Harbor, all floor-to-ceiling windows and modern luxury. "You call this a safe house?" I asked as we entered, Marco and 2 other security guards sweeping the space before nodding to Dante and positioning themselves outside. "I call it secure." He removed his jacket, draping it over a chair, and for the first time, I saw him without the armor of his suit coat. The white shirt beneath clung to his frame, and I could see the suggestion of muscle, the way he moved with controlled power. "Make yourself comfortable. We'll be here until I know who sent that message. I can't just disappear. I have responsibilities." "Already handled." He poured 2 glasses of whiskey without asking if I wanted one. "Your sister's been notified you're working late. Your landlord's been paid through the end of the year. Your mother's medical bills are covered for the next 6 months. I stared at him, my heart pounding. You can't control my entire life." "I can, and I did." He handed me the whiskey. "Drink, you're in shock." I wanted to throw it at him. Instead, I drank, and the burn down my throat was almost grounding. "Elena." His voice softened fractionally. "Sit down before you fall down." My legs were shaking. I sank onto the leather couch, and the adrenaline that had been holding me together finally cracked. "Who sent that message?" I whispered. "I don't know yet, but I will." He sat across from me, elbows on his knees, his focus entirely on my face. "There are several possibilities. The Chinese delegates we negotiated with, one of their competitors might have surveillance on them. The Russians from today's meeting, they work with volatile people. Or someone from one of the families I've had disagreements with." "Families?" His smile was cold. "Boston has 5 major Italian families, Elena. I'm the head of one. The others occasionally forget their place. The word hung between us, unspoken but inevitable. Mafia. I knew, I heard myself say. The moment I saw you, I knew what you were. And yet you signed my contract. Because I was desperate. No." He leaned forward, and I couldn't look away from those ice-blue eyes. "Because you're brave. Desperate people make stupid choices. You made a calculated risk. Is that what you think this is? Calculated? Isn't it?" He tilted his head, studying me. "You weighed your options. You decided the money and security I offer outweigh the danger. That's cold math, Elena. I respect it." "I'm not cold. No," he agreed quietly. "You're fire pretending to be ice. I saw it last night. The way you stood there translating while you were terrified. You don't run. That makes you rare." Something in his tone made my breath catch. His phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He read the message, his expression darkening. Marco traced the number. "Burner phone, purchased yesterday in Southie. Whoever sent it knows how to cover their tracks. So we're nowhere. Not nowhere. Southie narrows it down to the O'Shea family, Irish mob, old grudge against my organization." He set his phone down. "They're sending a message, warning you away from me. Maybe I should listen." Too late for that. He stood, moving to the windows, his silhouette outlined against the city lights. "They've identified you. They know you matter to me. Even if you walk away now, they might use you as leverage." My stomach dropped. "You're saying I'm in danger no matter what." "I'm saying you're safer with me than without me." He turned, and the city lights caught in his eyes. "I protect what's mine, Elena. I told you that." "I meant it. I'm not yours, aren't you?" He crossed back to me, and I should have moved, should have stood up, but I was frozen as he stopped just in front of me. "You signed a contract. You took my money. You're living in my safe house under my protection. By every definition that matters in my world, you belong to me now. I don't belong to anyone." "Good." The corner of his mouth twitched. "I don't want someone who belongs. I want someone who chooses. I didn't choose this. You chose to show up at my door this morning. You chose to get in my car. You chose not to run when you had the chance." He crouched in front of me, putting us at eye level, and my breath caught at the sudden proximity. "You're still choosing, Elena, every second you stay," I should have argued. Should have pushed him away. Instead, I asked, "Why do you care?" His expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering beneath the ice before he buried it. "Because you remind me of someone. And because useful people deserve protection, that's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. He stood, putting distance between us again. There's a bedroom down the hall. Lock the door if it makes you feel safer, but you don't need to. No one's getting through my security. He started to walk away, but I stopped him with a question I'd been holding since the restaurant. The Russians today. What were you negotiating? He paused, not turning around. You don't want to know. If I'm in danger because of it, I deserve to know. Silence stretched between us. Then, shipping routes, customs contacts, the logistics of moving high-value items through international channels without government interference. You mean smuggling? I mean business. Now he did turn, and his expression was harder than I'd ever seen it. I'm not a good man, Elena. I've done things that would make you run screaming. But I follow my own code. I protect my people, I honor my agreements, and I destroy anyone who threatens what's mine. That's the world you've entered. If you can't handle it, tell me now. I stood, meeting his gaze head-on. I'm still here, aren't I? Something dark and satisfied flickered in his eyes. Yes, you are. Then stop treating me like I'm fragile. I grew up in Southie before my family moved. I've seen violence. I've seen what men like you do. I'm not some naive college girl who thinks this is romantic. No, he agreed, moving closer. You're a survivor who's smart enough to recognize opportunity and brave enough to seize it. That's why you're dangerous, Elena, to my enemies, and to me. I'm not dangerous to anyone. You're dangerous to me because you make me want to explain myself, justify my choices. I haven't done that for anyone in 10 years. He stopped just close enough that I could feel his body heat. You make me want to be honest. That's a weakness I can't afford. Then don't be honest, I whispered. Keep your secrets. I'm just your translator. Is that what you think you are? My heart was racing. What else would I be? He lifted one hand, and I thought he might touch me, trace my jaw, cut my cheek, something. Instead, he let it fall to his side. Get some rest, he said quietly. Tomorrow we find out who's threatening you. And then we make them regret it. He walked away, leaving me standing in the living room, with my pulse pounding and my mind reeling. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the bedroom, door unlocked because I refused to show fear, and stared at the ceiling, listening to the quiet sounds of the safe house. Marco's low voice talking to the other guards, the distant hum of the city, and once, just past midnight, footsteps in the hallway. They paused outside my door. I held my breath, waiting. Sleep. Elena. Dante's voice came through the wood, soft and tired. You're safe here. I promise. Then his footsteps retreated, and I was left alone with the truth I'd been avoiding since I walked into Romano's and looked into ice-blue eyes. Dante Moretti wasn't just dangerous because of what he did. He was dangerous because of what he made me feel. Like I was standing at the edge of an abyss, knowing I should step back, but leaning forward instead, wondering what it would be like to fall. Dawn broke over Boston Harbor in shades of gold and blood. I found Dante in the kitchen, already dressed in a fresh suit, drinking espresso while studying 3 laptops arranged on the counter. He looked like he hadn't slept at all. Coffee's fresh, he said without looking up. Marco brought pastries. I poured coffee in silence, trying not to notice how domestic this felt. Standing in a kitchen with a mafia boss while he worked, morning light streaming through windows. Did you sleep? I asked. No. Did you find anything? Several things. He finally looked at me, and there were shadows under his eyes that made him look almost human. The O'Sheas have been watching Romano's for 3 weeks. They knew you worked there before I did. My stomach turned to ice. Why? Because they were watching me, and they noticed when I deviated from my usual routine. Going upstairs to that private room twice in one night got their attention. He closed one laptop. They ran your name, found your background, and decided you might be useful leverage. So this is your fault. Yes. He didn't try to deny it. I made you visible. I made you vulnerable. And now I'm going to fix it. How? His smile was cold and sharp as a knife. I'm going to have a conversation with Sean O'Shea. Explain the consequences of threatening what's mine. He'll see reason. And if he doesn't, Then he'll see his organization dismantled piece by piece until he does. He said it so calmly, like discussing weather. But it won't come to that. Sean's pragmatic. He knows he can't win a war with me. I set down my coffee, my hands shaking. I thought I understood what this was. What you were, but I didn't, did I? I had some Hollywood idea of the mob, men in nice suits making deals over dinner. I didn't think about violence, about people getting hurt because of me. No one's getting hurt because of you. Dante moved around the counter, closing the distance between us. They're getting hurt because they made the mistake of threatening you to get to me. That's on them, Elena, not you. That's a convenient distinction. It's the only distinction that matters in my world. He stopped in front of me, and I hated how my pulse spiked at his proximity. You're not responsible for other people's choices. Only your own. You chose to help me that night. You chose to sign my contract. Those were good choices. Smart choices. Don't second-guess them because someone else made a bad one. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. There are predators and prey in this world. I'm a predator. So are the O'Sheas, the Russians, the Chinese syndicates. But you... He lifted one hand, and this time he did touch me, his fingers grazing my jaw so gently I barely breathed. You're neither. You're something rare, something worth protecting. I'm not worth war. I'll decide what you're worth. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and I couldn't move, couldn't think. And Elena? You're worth burning Boston to the ground if that's what it takes to keep you safe. Before I could respond, before I could process the dark promise in his voice, his phone rang. He stepped back, the moment shattering, and answered. Marco, report. I couldn't hear the response, but I saw Dante's expression shift from focused to furious in a heartbeat. When? Pause. How many? Another pause. Seal off the building. No one in or out until I get there. He hung up, already moving. Elena, stay here. Don't leave this apartment for any reason. What happened? The O'Sheas made their move. They hit one of my properties, a nightclub in Southie. 3 of my men are dead, 7 wounded. His voice was ice and rage. They're escalating, trying to force me into reacting emotionally. Are you going to react emotionally? He paused at the door, looking back at me, and for the first time, I saw past the ice, saw the fury and grief and cold calculation warring beneath. No, he said quietly. I'm going to react strategically. Stay here, Marco's outside. You're safe. Then he was gone. And I was alone with the morning light and the growing certainty that I'd stepped into something far darker than I'd understood. The next 6 hours were torture. I tried to distract myself, showering, eating, pretending to read on my phone, but every news notification made my heart race, expecting to see headlines about gang violence or mob hits. Instead, there was nothing. Eerie, deliberate silence. Marco brought lunch but wouldn't meet my eyes. The other guards rotated shifts with military precision, and through the windows, I watched the city move on, oblivious to the war brewing beneath its surface. At 4 p.m., Dante returned. He looked exactly the same, suit perfect, hair in place, expression controlled. But when he poured himself a drink, I saw his hands were steady through pure force of will. Is it over? I asked quietly. It's handled. He drank the whiskey in one swallow, then poured another. Sean O'Shea and I had our conversation. He understands the situation now. What does that mean? It means he's pulling back. The men who attacked my club will face consequences from their own organization, and your name's been removed from their radar. He turned to face me. You're safe, Elena. It's over. What did you do? I reminded him that his operation exists at my discretion, that I control 70% of the port traffic in Boston, and without my cooperation, his import business crumbles. I also reminded him that I have contacts in his organization, people loyal to me, not him. People who could make his life very complicated. You blackmailed him. I negotiated from a position of strength. That's not blackmail. That's business. He finished the second drink. 3 of my men are dead because the O'Sheas wanted to send me a message. I can't bring them back, but I can ensure they died for something. For establishing boundaries that won't be crossed again. I stood, crossing to him. You're telling me everything's fine, but you don't look fine. I'm not fine. I'm furious. For the first time, emotion cracked through his control. I'm furious that people I've known for years, men with families, are dead because someone decided to use you as bait. I'm furious that you were scared. I'm furious that I brought this into your life. You didn't. I did. He set down the glass. From the moment I asked you to stay in that dining room, I put a target on your back. That's on me. And now I have to live with 3 men dead and a woman who looks at me like I'm a monster. She can't quite figure out how to escape. I'm not trying to escape. You should be. He moved past me toward the windows. This is what my life looks like, Elena. Violence, strategy, impossible choices between bad and worse. Most women run when they see it. The smart ones, anyway. I followed him to the windows, standing close enough that our reflections overlapped in the glass. I'm not most women. No, he agreed quietly. You're not. We stood there in silence, watching the city lights begin to flicker on as dusk settled over Boston. Tell me about them, I said. The men who died. Dante was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, Michael Rossi, 42, 3 kids, worked security for my clubs for 8 years. Made the best lasagna I've ever tasted and once punched a man through a windshield for slapping his wife. His voice was flat, controlled. Tommy Chen, 26, single, sent half his paycheck home to his mother in Taiwan. Wanted to be an architect. Worked for me to save money for graduate school. And the third? Luca Moretti, my cousin, 24, stupid, brave, loyal. He was supposed to be at university, not working that club, but he wanted to prove himself, and I let him because I didn't think the O'Sheas would be reckless enough to strike directly. His reflection's jaw clenched. I was wrong. My chest tightened. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be smart. He turned to face me, and there was something raw in his eyes. Understand what this world costs. What staying in it will cost you. Because I can protect you from external threats, Elena. But I can't protect you from what this life does to your soul. Maybe I'm stronger than you think. Maybe you are. He lifted one hand, cupping my face, and this time I didn't pull away. Or maybe you're about to find out exactly how strong you need to be. Because the O'Sheas aren't the only threat. They're just the first test. How many tests are there? His thumb traced my lower lip, and I felt that touch everywhere. As many as it takes until you either run or decide to stay for real. What if I've already decided? Something dark and desperate flashed in his eyes. Then God help us both. He kissed me. Not gently. There was nothing gentle about Dante Moretti. He kissed me like a man drowning, like I was air and salvation and damnation all at once. His hand slid into my hair, angling my head, and I gasped against his mouth, which was a mistake, because then he deepened the kiss, and I stopped thinking entirely. I grabbed his shirt, pulling him closer, and he made a sound low in his throat that sent heat racing through my veins. His other hand found my waist, pulling me flush against him, and I could feel his heart hammering as hard as mine. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. That was a mistake, he said roughly. Probably. I don't make mistakes with my employees. Then fire me. His laugh was low and dark. Not a chance. He stepped back, running a hand through his hair, and I could see him rebuilding his control, icing over the heat I'd seen burning beneath. This doesn't change anything, he said. You're still under my protection. You still work for me. And what just happened doesn't happen again until you're certain it's what you want. What if I'm already certain? Then you're not thinking clearly. He picked up his jacket. Get dressed. We're going to dinner. Where? Somewhere public. Somewhere you'll be seen with me by everyone who matters in this city. His smile was sharp. I'm going to make a statement. Elena Costa is under my protection. Anyone who touches her answers to me. And after this afternoon, everyone knows what that means. He left the room, and I stood there with my lips still burning and my heart in my throat, because I was starting to understand what I'd signed up for. Not just a job. Not just danger, but a fall from which there was no climbing back. And the terrifying thing was, I didn't want to climb back anymore. I wanted to let go. The restaurant was in the financial district. Exclusive, expensive. The kind of place where Boston's elite conducted business over Wagyu beef and bottles of wine older than I was. Dante had chosen it deliberately. We walked in together, his hand on the small of my back, and I felt every eye in the room tracking our movement. I recognized faces from the news, politicians, CEOs, a federal judge, and by the way they studied me, calculating my place in Dante's world, I knew word would spread before dessert was served. Elena Costa, Dante Moretti's translator, under his protection. In his world, that was as good as a ring. "You're doing it again?" Dante murmured, as we were led to a private table overlooking the city. "Doing what?" "Reading the room, cataloging faces, figuring out who matters." He pulled out my chair himself, which was so unexpectedly gentlemanly that I almost smiled. "It's one of the things I find most fascinating about you." "You find me fascinating?" I asked as he took the seat across from me. "Endlessly." He ordered wine without consulting the sommelier, then leaned back, studying me. "Most people in your situation would be terrified. You're terrified too, but you're also calculating, adapting, figuring out how to survive. It's remarkable." "It's trauma response." His expression softened fractionally. "Tell me about my trauma? About why you're so good at reading people, why you studied linguistics in Beijing, why you ended up pouring wine in Boston instead of working in academia." He paused as the sommelier presented the wine, went through the ritual of approval, then poured. When we were alone again, Dante said quietly, "Tell me your story, Elena." I should have deflected, should have kept that wall between us. Instead, I found myself talking. My father was a professor. Linguistics, like me. He was brilliant, charming. Everyone loved him. I took a sip of wine, barely tasting it. He was also a compulsive gambler. By the time I was 16, he'd destroyed our savings, mortgaged our house, borrowed from anyone who'd lend. We lost everything. My mother had to work 3 jobs just to keep my sister and me fed. Dante said nothing, but his focus was absolute. I went to Beijing on scholarship, studying Mandarin and linguistic anthropology. I was going to be a professor too, but a better one, more responsible. I was going to make enough money to take care of my family, to fix what he'd broken. I laughed bitterly. Then my mother got sick. Stage 3 breast cancer. The insurance barely covered half. I came home to help, and by the time she was in remission, I'd missed too much school. Lost my scholarship, lost my future. Your father? Overdosed 2 years ago. Painkillers and alcohol. Whether it was intentional or not, we'll never know. I met his eyes. So yes, I'm good at reading people because I had to be. I learned to recognize when my father was lying about money, when collectors were coming, when we needed to disappear for a few days. I learned survival linguistics, how to hear what people mean beneath what they say. It's not a gift, Dante. It's a scar. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, my father was a monster. I hadn't expected that. He ran the Moretti family before me. Brilliant strategist, ruthless businessman, absolute tyrant at home. He taught me the business by breaking me down and rebuilding me exactly as he wanted. Cold, calculating, void of weakness. Dante's voice was flat, emotionless. When I was 17, I watched him beat a man to death with his bare hands for the crime of skimming $50. Not because he cared about the money, because he needed to remind everyone what defiance cost. Dante, I took over when I was 22. He had a heart attack during a meeting, and I let him die on that boardroom floor while finishing the negotiation. I didn't call an ambulance until the deal was signed. He took a long drink. Does that make me a monster too? I don't know, I said honestly. Does it? Every day. His eyes met mine. Every day I make choices that would horrify normal people. I order violence. I ruin lives. I bend the law until it breaks. And I sleep fine because I tell myself it's necessary, it's business, it's survival. But sometimes I wonder if I'm just my father's son after all. I reached across the table, covering his hand with mine. His fingers tensed, then relaxed, turning to lace through mine. You're not him, I said. Your father killed for ego. You protect your people. That's not the same thing, isn't it? 3 men died this afternoon, Elena. Good men. And I'm sitting here having dinner, holding your hand, feeling more alive than I have in years. What does that make me? Human, he laughed, rough and surprised. No one's called me that in a long time. Our food arrived, beautifully plated dishes I didn't remember ordering. We ate in silence for a few minutes, but the connection between us had shifted, deepened. Why did you kiss me? I asked finally. Because I wanted to. He set down his fork. Because I've wanted to since I watched you walk into that dining room wearing armor made of fear and courage. Because every instinct I have says you're dangerous to the life I've built, and I've stopped caring. I'm not dangerous to anything. You're dangerous to me because you make me want impossible things. He leaned forward. I want to take you to my estate outside the city. Show you the library I built. 12,000 books in 10 languages. I want to hear you read to me in Mandarin while I work. I want to watch you realize you're safe, that you don't have to calculate every move, that I'll protect you no matter what. My breath caught. Dante, I want to ruin you for any other man. Make you mine in every way that matters. And I want it so badly that I'm telling you, against every instinct, to run. Because staying with me means accepting this world. Accepting what I am. And you deserve better. What if I don't want better? What if I want this? Then you're more reckless than I thought. He stood, pulling out his wallet and leaving cash on the table. Far more than the bill required. Come on, where are we going? Somewhere we can have this conversation without an audience. The estate was 40 minutes outside Boston. A sprawling property surrounded by woods, with a main house that looked like something from old European aristocracy. This is yours? I asked as we pulled through gates that looked like they could withstand a siege. My sanctuary, the only place I can actually breathe. He helped me from the car, and I noticed his security stayed outside as we entered. The library was breathtaking. 2 stories of books, leather chairs, a fireplace, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking dark woods. It smelled like paper and leather and cedar. Oh, I breathed. Dante watched my reaction with something like satisfaction. I told you I'd show you. I walked along the shelves, trailing my fingers over spines. Chinese classics, Russian literature, French philosophy, organized not by language but by theme, a mind that saw connections others missed. You built this, I said. I needed somewhere that was mine. Somewhere that wasn't stained with blood and business. He moved to the bar, pouring 2 drinks. Somewhere I could remember who I was before my father got his hands on me. I turned to face him. Who were you? A kid who loved books. Who wanted to teach literature. Who thought the family business was something you escaped, not inherited. He handed me a drink. Whiskey, smooth and expensive. Then my father decided I was old enough to learn the reality. He made sure that kid died before he could become soft. He's not dead. I moved closer. He built this library. He reads poetry in 4 languages. He's still here. He's a liability in my world. Or maybe he's the reason you're still human in it. Dante set down his drink and closed the distance between us in 2 strides. He cupped my face in both hands, and I could feel him trembling. This man who controlled an empire with an iron fist was shaking with want and restraint. Elena, he said roughly. If I kiss you again, I won't stop. Tell me to take you home. Tell me to maintain professional boundaries. Tell me anything but yes. I set down my drink and rose on my toes, bringing my lips a breath from his. Yes, I whispered. He made a sound that was half groan, half surrender, and then his mouth was on mine and the world disappeared. This kiss was different. Deeper, slower, deliberate. He backed me against the bookshelf, his body a warm wall, and I clutched his shoulders while he explored my mouth like he was memorizing every sensation. When I gasped his name, he groaned and lifted me, and I wrapped my legs around his waist instinctively. Bedroom, I managed between kisses. Too far. He carried me to the leather couch, laying me down and covering my body with his. The weight of him, the solid reality of muscle and heat, made something inside me crack open. Tell me to stop. Don't stop. His hands found the zipper of my dress, and I arched to help him slide it off my shoulders. He kissed my throat, my collarbone, the swell of my breast above my bra, and I was burning, drowning, falling. Beautiful, he murmured against my skin. So goddamn beautiful. I fumbled with the buttons of his shirt, needing to touch him, and when I finally got it open, I ran my hands over hard muscle and felt him shudder. We shed clothes with frantic urgency. His shirt, my dress, his belt, my heels, until there was nothing between us but breath and want, and the growing certainty that this was inevitable, had always been inevitable from the moment our eyes met. When he finally moved over me, braced on his forearms, he paused. "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." He kissed me deeply, thoroughly, and then we were moving together, and the world narrowed to just this: his body, my breath, the way he said my name like a prayer and a curse. Afterward, we lay tangled together on the couch, the fire casting shadows across our skin. "I should feel guilty," I murmured against his chest. "About what?" "Sleeping with my boss, making terrible decisions, letting a mafia don convince me this is somehow okay." I felt him smile against my hair. "We'll add it to the list of things to feel guilty about later. Right now, just stay here." So I did. I stayed curled against Dante Moretti in his library sanctuary while night deepened outside. And for the first time since signing his contract, I stopped calculating risks. I just felt. And it was terrifying and perfect and wrong and exactly right all at once. Reality returned at dawn. I woke to find Dante already dressed, standing at the window with his phone pressed to his ear, his voice low and furious. I don't care what excuses he has. He crossed a line. Handle it. He hung up, and when he turned and saw me awake, his expression shifted, softened fractionally before the ice returned. "What's wrong?" I asked, pulling a blanket around myself. "Business. Nothing for you to worry about." He crossed to me, pressing a kiss to my forehead that felt like goodbye. "Marco's bringing you clothes. Get dressed. We need to get back to the city." Something in his tone made my stomach sink. "Dante, what happened?" "Someone leaked information about last night's meeting with the O'Sheas. Details only my inner circle knew, which means someone I trust is feeding intelligence to my enemies." The implications hit me like ice water. "You think someone in your organization betrayed you?" "I know they did. I just don't know who yet." He ran a hand through his hair, the first sign of real stress I'd seen. "Marco's running checks on everyone who knew about yesterday. Security footage, phone records, financial transactions. Whoever it is, I'll find them. And then what?" His expression went cold. "Then I'll make an example of them. Betrayal has one punishment in my world, Elena. No second chances." I stood, keeping the blanket wrapped around me. "This is because of me. The O'Sheas, the threat, now a mole in your organization. It all started when I entered your life." "No." He crossed back to me, gripping my shoulders. "It started because I built an empire on fear instead of loyalty. Because somewhere along the line, someone in my organization decided their interests mattered more than their oath. That's on me, not you. But I'm the catalyst. You're the mirror." His eyes bore into mine. "You showed me cracks that were already there. Now I have to decide how to fix them." Marco knocked on the door, entering with a garment bag. He didn't look at me, which told me he knew exactly what had happened last night. "Sir, we have a situation. You need to see this." Dante's jaw clenched. "Show me." Marco pulled up footage on his tablet. Security camera feed from one of Dante's warehouses, time-stamped 3 a.m. A figure in dark clothes moved through the building, photographing shipping manifests and inventory lists. The camera angle was poor, but when the person turned toward an exit, the light caught their face for just a second. My blood turned to ice. It was someone I recognized, the man who'd stood beside Dante at yesterday's meeting with the Russians. His second-in-command, his friend, Antonio. Dante breathed, and I heard rage and grief warring in that single word. 20 years, 20 fucking years he's been with me. "There's more," Marco said grimly. "We traced his financials. He's been receiving payments from a shell corporation linked to the Calabrese family. They've been buying intelligence for 6 months. The Calabrese family, I'd heard Dante mention them. A rival organization from New York trying to expand into Boston territory. He sold us out," Dante said quietly, dangerously. "Not for ideology, Not for fear, for money. What do you want me to do? Marco asked. Bring him to the estate. Don't let him know we're aware. Tell him I need him for a meeting. Dante's voice was empty of emotion, which was somehow more terrifying than rage. And Marco, when you bring him, bring everything we need to extract a full confession. Marco nodded and left. I stood frozen, still wrapped in the blanket, watching Dante transform before my eyes. The man who'd held me last night, who'd been vulnerable and human, disappeared beneath ice and calculation. You're going to torture him, I said. I'm going to get answers. Then justice. Dante, this is what I am, Elena. He turned to face me, and his eyes were arctic. This is the world you agreed to enter. Antonio betrayed me, betrayed everyone in my organization, put you at risk, put hundreds of people at risk. He doesn't get mercy. I'm not asking for mercy. I don't know what I'm asking. I wrapped my arms around myself. I knew what you were in theory, but this is different. This is watching you become something cold and lethal. I've always been cold and lethal. You just hadn't seen it directed at someone who deserved it. He moved to the bar, pouring a drink despite the early hour. If you want to leave, Marco will drive you back to the city. To your apartment. I'll pay out your contract in full. You'll never have to see me again. Is that what you want? What I want is irrelevant. What I need is for you to understand who I am before you're in too deep to get out. He downed the whiskey. I'm giving you a choice, Elena. Stay and see what I become when someone I trust betrays me. Or leave now, with your illusions intact. I should have taken the out, should have run. Instead, I walked to him, letting the blanket fall, standing before him in just my underwear and bruises from last night's passion. I'm not leaving, I said quietly. You should. Probably, but I'm not. I reached for his hand. If this is who you are, then I need to see it, all of it. No more illusions. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise maybe, or relief. You might hate me after today. I might. But I'll hate you honestly. That's better than loving a lie. He pulled me against him, burying his face in my hair. God, you're going to destroy me. Maybe we'll destroy each other. He laughed darkly. That's the most honest thing anyone's ever said to me. Antonio arrived 2 hours later. By then, I was dressed and positioned in Dante's study, visible, present, but not involved. Dante had given me explicit instructions. Watch, stay silent, and if it becomes too much, leave without shame. Antonio walked in smiling, casual, unaware. Dante, Marco said you needed... He stopped when he saw me. His smile faltered. Sit down, Antonio, Dante said from behind his desk, his voice pleasant and cold as winter. Sure, but what's... I said sit. The temperature dropped. Now. Antonio sat, his eyes darting between Dante and me and Marco, who stood by the door blocking the exit. Dante opened his laptop, turning it to face Antonio. Would you like to explain this? The security footage played. I watched color drain from Antonio's face. Watched his hands start to shake. Watched 20 years of loyalty crack and crumble in 30 seconds of video. Dante, don't insult me with lies. Dante stood, moving around the desk with predatory grace. 6 months. You've been selling my secrets to the Calabrese family for 6 months. Shipping routes, client lists, security protocols, everything they needed to undermine my operations. It's not... 3 of my men are dead because the O'Sheas had intelligence they shouldn't have had. Intelligence that came from you. Dante's voice never rose, never wavered. You enabled the attack on my club, on my people, on Elena. Antonio's eyes flicked to me, and I saw calculation there, wondering if I was leverage, wondering if he could use me. Don't even think about it, Dante said softly. She's not your way out. I needed the money, Antonio said suddenly, desperately. My daughter's medical bills. The cancer came back, and insurance wouldn't cover the experimental treatment. The Calabrese family offered me $2 million. What was I supposed to do? You were supposed to come to me. Dante's fist hit the desk with enough force to make Antonio flinch. I would have paid for her treatment. All of it, no questions asked. Because that's what family does. That's what loyalty means. You would have seen it as weakness. I would have seen it as family. For the first time, emotion cracked through Dante's control. I've known your daughter since she was born. I was at her baptism, her first communion, her high school graduation. Did you really think I'd let her die for lack of money? Antonio's face crumpled. I didn't know what to do. They approached me and I panicked. And once I started, I couldn't stop. They had evidence. They would have destroyed my reputation, ruined my daughter's chances. So you destroyed mine instead. Dante straightened. You betrayed me. Betrayed everyone in this organization. Got 3 men killed. And for what? Money you could have asked for. Treatment I would have provided. You chose cowardice over trust. Dante, please. Marco, take him downstairs. Get every detail. Who he's been in contact with. What information he's passed. What operations are compromised. Get it all. Antonio lunged from his chair, and for a second I thought he might attack Dante. But Marco moved faster, subduing him with brutal efficiency. Dante! Antonio screamed as Marco dragged him toward a door I hadn't noticed. Please, my daughter needs me. She's only 17, please. Dante stood motionless until the screaming faded behind the soundproof door. Then he poured another drink with trembling hands. I stood slowly, crossing to him. Don't, he said without looking at me. Don't comfort me. Don't tell me it's okay. I'm about to have a man tortured for information. There's nothing okay about that. I know. So why are you still here? Because you gave me a choice. And I chose to stay. I took the glass from his hand, setting it aside, and forced him to look at me. Because that man made a choice too. A terrible one. And you're doing what you have to do to protect everyone else in your organization. You don't understand. I understand that you're not enjoying this. That you wish he'd just come to you. That you're grieving the loss of someone you trusted. I touched his face, and he leaned into my palm like he was drowning. I understand that you're not a monster, Dante. You're just a man trying to survive in a monstrous world. He kissed me desperately, and I tasted whiskey and grief and fury. When he pulled back, his eyes were raw. Stay with me today. Even if you hate what you see, please. I'm not going anywhere. He held me then, standing in his study while screams echoed distantly below. And I realized something terrifying. I wasn't horrified by what he was. I was horrified by how completely I'd accepted it. How thoroughly he'd become mine. And how far I'd fallen into his world. Without even noticing the descent, Antonio talked. By nightfall, we had everything. Names, accounts, operations. The full extent of the Calabrese family's infiltration into Dante's empire. 17 people compromised. 8 ongoing operations exposed. Millions in losses. And sitting in Dante's study, listening to Marco's report, I saw exactly what kind of man I'd chosen. Handle it, Dante said quietly. All of them. I want the traitors out of my organization by midnight. I want the Calabrese family to understand the cost of coming at me. And I want Antonio's daughter to receive a trust fund. $5 million, accessible when she turns 21, with her medical expenses paid in full until then. Marco blinked. Sir? She didn't choose her father's betrayal. She doesn't pay for his sins. Dante's voice was hollow. Make sure she knows the money comes from me, not him. Make sure she understands what he did. And make sure she never wants to follow in his footsteps. And Antonio? Put him on a boat to Sicily. Tell him if he ever sets foot in North America again, I'll kill his entire bloodline. He gets to live knowing his daughter will be provided for, but only because of my mercy, not his choices. Dante stood, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. He betrayed me, but I won't make his child an orphan. That's the difference between him and me. Marco nodded and left. Silence settled over the study like ash. You're going to take care of his daughter, I said finally. I'm going to ensure one good thing comes from this disaster. He moved to the windows, staring out at his estate grounds. Antonio was right about one thing. She's 17. Same age I was when my father started breaking me. She deserves better than growing up knowing her father was a traitor who died for it. I joined him at the window. So you're giving her a future. I'm giving her a choice. Money, education, freedom from her father's mistakes. He glanced at me. Does that make me less of a monster in your eyes? You were never a monster, Dante. You're just a man who makes impossible choices in impossible situations. You're far too generous. I'm far too realistic." I leaned against him, and he wrapped an arm around my waist. "You tortured a man for information today. You're exiling 17 people from your organization. You've probably ordered violence I don't even know about. But you're also protecting an innocent girl and giving her a future her father destroyed. You're both things. That's what makes you human." He pulled me closer, burying his face in my hair. "I don't deserve you. Probably not. But you have me anyway." We stood there as night deepened, and I thought about how far I'd come in just a few days, from pouring wine to standing in a mafia, Dawn's arms while bodies were cleaned up and traitors were exiled, and a teenage girl's future was secured by blood money. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "He hasn't told you everything. Ask him about Isabella." I went rigid. Dante felt it immediately. "What is it?" I showed him the message. His expression went from exhausted to furious in a heartbeat. "They're still trying to drive a wedge between us." "Who's Isabella?" The name hung between us like a gunshot. Dante's jaw clenched. "Someone I loved. Someone I failed to protect. Someone who's been dead for 10 years. Dante, she was my fiancée. We were 22, planning to escape this life together. She wanted me to walk away from the family, and I was considering it. We had plans, Paris maybe, or Barcelona, somewhere far from Boston and the Moretti name." His voice was hollow. "Then my father found out. He couldn't allow his heir to leave. So he arranged a car accident, made it look mechanical. She died instantly." My hand flew to my mouth. "Oh my God, I knew it was him. Couldn't prove it, but I knew. So I waited, bided my time, and when he had that heart attack during the meeting, I could have saved him, called an ambulance, performed CPR. Instead, I watched him die and felt nothing but satisfaction." He turned to face me fully. "That's who I am, Elena. A man who let his father die for revenge. A man who chose power over love. A man who will never forgive himself for not protecting the woman he claimed to love. That's not your fault, isn't it? I knew what my father was. I knew leaving would have consequences. I should have taken Isabella and run before he could act. Instead, I was cautious, strategic, and she paid for my cowardice with her life." I grabbed his face, forcing him to look at me. "You were 22 years old, trying to escape a monster, and that monster murdered the woman you loved to maintain control. None of that is your fault. None of it. Then why does it feel like it is? Because you're human. Because we always blame ourselves for the things we couldn't control." I kissed him gently. "But you're not that scared 22-year-old anymore. You're Dante Moretti, who commands an empire and protects his people and just secured a future for a traitor's daughter because it was the right thing to do. Isabella would be proud of who you've become. Or horrified. Maybe both. But she'd understand why you stayed, why you took power instead of running. Because this way, you control the empire. This way, no one else dies because of a Moretti patriarch's cruelty." He kissed me desperately, and I tasted tears. Whether his or mine, I couldn't tell. When we broke apart, his phone buzzed. "Marco, Calabresi family is moving against us. 10 vehicles heading toward the South End properties. They know we uncovered their mole." Dante's expression hardened instantly. "They're escalating, trying to hit us while we're supposedly weak from internal betrayal. How many men do they have? 60, maybe 70 in their Boston operations. I have twice that, but they've got the element of surprise." He was already moving, grabbing his jacket, checking a gun I hadn't seen holstered at his back. "Elena, you need to stay here. Estate security is airtight. You'll be safe." "No," he stopped, looking back at me. "What?" I said no. "I'm coming with you." "Absolutely not. This is a combat situation. I'm not letting you walk into a war without me." I crossed to him. "I chose this. I chose you. I'm not sitting in a safe house while you risk your life. Elena, this isn't negotiable. Neither is this." I grabbed his jacket. "You told me yesterday that I'm yours. Well, you're mine too, and I don't let what's mine walk into danger alone. So either I'm coming with you, or you're staying here with me. Choose." For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then he laughed, sharp and surprised and almost joyful. "You're insane. I'm in love with a mafia boss. Insanity comes with the territory." His eyes widened. "What did you just say?" "You heard me." My heart was pounding, but I didn't look away. "I love you. I don't know when it happened. Maybe that first night. Maybe yesterday when you protected Antonio's daughter. Maybe just now when you trusted me with Isabella's story. But I love you, Dante Moretti, and I'm not watching you leave without me. He kissed me like I was oxygen, like I was salvation, like I was everything. I love you too. He breathed against my lips. God help us both, I love you too. Then let's go. We have a war to win. The convoy was 7 SUVs, each filled with Dante's soldiers, men I'd seen around the estate, faces that had become familiar over the past few days. I rode in Dante's vehicle, positioned between him and Marco in the back seat, wearing body armor that Dante had insisted on. It was heavy, restrictive, and probably wouldn't do much against the kind of firepower we were about to face. But it made Dante feel better about bringing me, so I wore it. The Calabrese family is hitting 3 locations simultaneously, Marco explained, pulling up a tactical map on his tablet. The shipping warehouse in Southie, the club that was attacked yesterday, and our financial office in the financial district. They're trying to cripple our operations. How many men do we have at each location? Dante asked, his voice steady and cold, the voice of a general, not a lover. 12 at the warehouse, 8 at the club, 6 at the offices. Not enough if they're bringing their full force? Then we hit them before they hit us. Dante's eyes were ice. Reroute teams to intercept their convoys. I want half their vehicles disabled before they reach our locations. The others we let through and trap. Box them in, cut off their escape routes, and end this tonight. Sir, that's an order, Marco. Marco nodded, already making calls. I watched Dante transform into something both terrifying and magnificent, a strategist, a leader, a man who commanded absolute loyalty because he'd earned it in blood. You're beautiful when you're plotting warfare, I said quietly. His eyes flicked to me, and for just a second, warmth broke through the ice. You're insane for finding that attractive. Probably. His hand found mine, squeezing once. Stay close to me. Follow orders without question. And if I tell you to run, you run. Understood? Understood. I mean it, Elena. If things go wrong, they won't, I squeezed back. Because you're brilliant, and you have 100 men who'd die for you. We're going to win. Your faith in me is terrifying. Get used to it. The convoy split as we approached the south end. Half the vehicles peeled off toward the warehouse, while we continued to the club, the symbolic target, the place where Dante's men had died yesterday. The Calabrese family wanted to send a message. Dante was about to respond with overwhelming force. We parked 2 blocks away, and Dante's soldiers moved with military precision, taking positions, checking weapons, coordinating on encrypted radios. I stayed with Dante and Marco, watching from the command vehicle as the trap was set. 3 vehicles approaching, Marco reported. 20 men heavily armed. Let them enter, Dante ordered. Wait until they're inside, then seal the exits. I watched on the tablet screen as black SUVs pulled up to the club. Men poured out, professional, organized, ready for violence. They entered the building, and I held my breath. Now, Dante said quietly. Dante's soldiers moved like shadows, blocking exits surrounding the building. The Calabrese men realized too late that they'd walked into a trap. Gunfire erupted. I flinched at the sound, even through the armored vehicle, and Dante's arm wrapped around me protectively. It's okay, he murmured. It's okay, but it wasn't okay. Men were dying because of territorial disputes and old grudges and the brutal mathematics of power. The firefight lasted 7 minutes. When it ended, Marco's voice came through the radio. Perimeter secure. 15 Calabrese soldiers in custody. 3 dead. 2 escaped. No casualties on our side. Dante nodded once. Bring me their leader, sir. Bring me their leader. 5 minutes later, a man was dragged before our vehicle, mid-30s, bleeding from a shoulder wound, defiant despite being captured. Dante stepped out, and I followed before he could tell me to stay. The Calabrese soldier sneered when he saw Dante. Moretti, heard you'd gone soft. Guess that was a lie. Who sent you? Dante asked calmly. Fuck you. Dante pulled his gun, smooth, practiced, and shot the man in the leg. The soldier screamed, collapsing. Who sent you? Dante repeated. I stood frozen, watching the man I loved torture someone for information. And the worst part was, I understood why. This wasn't cruelty. It was necessity. It was sending a message that attacks would not be tolerated. Vittorio Calabresi, the man gasped. He ordered hits on all your locations. He wants your territory. He thinks you're vulnerable because of internal betrayals. Where is Vittorio now? I don't know. He doesn't tell us his locations. Dante studied him for a long moment, then lowered his gun. Take him to a hospital. Anonymous drop. Make sure he survives to tell Vittorio exactly what happened here tonight. Marco hesitated. Sir, letting him live is the message. Vittorio thinks I'm vulnerable. He thinks internal betrayals make me weak. Dante's voice cut like a knife. I want this man to tell him that I crushed his attack without losing a single soldier. I want him to know that the Moretti family is stronger than ever. And I want him to understand that if he comes at me again, I won't show mercy twice. He turned to me. Get in the car. We're going to the warehouse. The warehouse attack had been neutralized the same way. Trap, contain, crush. The financial office had been reinforced in time, preventing any attack at all. By midnight, the Calabresi family's attempted assault had resulted in 32 casualties on their side, 0 on ours, and a crystal-clear message. Dante Moretti was not a man you struck at lightly. We returned to the estate exhausted, bloodied by proximity if not direct violence, and emotionally wrung out. I showered off the night. The fear and adrenaline and the strange, terrible pride I felt watching Dante command his empire with brutal efficiency. When I emerged, he was on the balcony overlooking his estate, a drink in hand, still wearing tactical gear with his shirt unbuttoned. Is it over? I asked, joining him. For now, Vittorio will think twice before moving against me again. And if he doesn't, next time I won't leave survivors to deliver messages. He took a long drink. You were incredible tonight. I didn't do anything. You stayed calm. You didn't panic. You trusted me. He set down his glass and pulled me against him. Most people would have run. You chose to stay. That makes you either the bravest or most foolish woman I've ever met. Probably both. I laid my head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Dante, what we did tonight, what you did, was that justice or revenge? Both, neither. Does it matter? I think it does. To you. He was quiet for a long moment. 3 of my men died yesterday because someone attacked my operations. Tonight, I ensured it wouldn't happen again. I protected my people. If that's revenge, then revenge is survival in my world. And Antonio's daughter? Letting that soldier live to send a message? Those weren't just strategy. No, he admitted. Those were conscience. The part of me that still believes in mercy, even in this world. The part of me you seem to think is worth loving. It is worth loving. You're worth loving. I looked up at him. All of you. The strategist, the protector, the man who reads poetry and builds libraries. I love all of it. He kissed me deeply, desperately, and when he pulled back, his eyes were raw with emotion. Marry me, he said. I froze. What? Marry me. Not because you're trapped or obligated or have no choice, but because you want this life, because you love me, because you're choosing me the same way I'm choosing you. He cupped my face. Marry me, Elena Costa. Be my wife, my partner, my equal. Stand with me in this world we're building together. My heart was in my throat. Dante, this is insane. Everything about us is insane. Why stop now? We've known each other less than a week. I've known you were mine since that first night. Everything since has been confirmation. His thumb traced my cheekbone. I love you. I trust you. I want you beside me for the rest of my life. That's not going to change in a year or 10 years. So why wait? Because people don't do this. They date. They move in together. We're not normal people, Elena. We're never going to have a normal relationship. We're going to have late nights dealing with crises and dangerous enemies and impossible choices. We're going to build something extraordinary together because that's who we are. He leaned his forehead against mine. Say yes. Choose this. Choose us. I thought about everything that had led to this moment. From a chance translation in a restaurant to standing in a mafia, Don's arms while he proposed marriage like it was the most natural thing in the world. I thought about Isabella, who'd wanted to escape this world, and how that had ended. I thought about staying, about fighting, about building something new. Yes, I whispered. His eyes widened. Yes, I'll marry you. I'll stay with you. I'll build this impossible life with you. I kissed him. I choose you, Dante Moretti. Now and always. He kissed me like I'd just given him salvation. And maybe I had. Because in a world built on violence and power and impossible choices, we'd chosen each other. And somehow that felt like the most rebellious, beautiful thing we could have done. The engagement lasted 3 days before everything exploded. Vittorio Calabresi, it turned out, had one final card to play. I was at the estate, working in Dante's library translating documents for an upcoming negotiation with a Korean syndicate, when Marco burst through the door with controlled panic on his face. Elena, we need to leave, now. I looked up from my laptop. What? Why? No time, grab your phone. Leave everything else. Something in his tone made every instinct scream danger. I stood, pocketing my phone, and followed him through the house. Outside, 4 SUVs were already running, security swarming. Where's Dante? I asked, on his way back from the city. He knows you're being moved. Marco ushered me into the middle vehicle. Vittorio knows where you are. He's sending men to take you as leverage. My blood turned to ice. How does he know we have another mole? Someone told Vittorio about the engagement, about your location, about Dante's movements. Marco's jaw was tight. We're moving you to a secure location until Dante can deal with this. The convoy peeled out of the estate gates, moving fast through the winding roads toward the highway. I gripped the armrest, my heart hammering. How many men? I asked. Calabresi? At least 40, maybe more. Marco was coordinating on his radio, clipped commands and rapid responses. They're hitting the estate and trying to intercept our convoy. We have to get you to the safe house before... An explosion rocked the lead vehicle. Time slowed. I saw the SUV ahead of us lift off the ground, flip, crash onto its side in a screech of metal and shattering glass. Ambush, Marco shouted. Evasive maneuvers. Our driver swerved, but more explosions erupted. Roadside IEDs, coordinated and professional. The vehicle behind us took a direct hit, flames engulfing it instantly. We're boxed in, the driver yelled. I looked out the windows and saw them. Vehicles pouring out of the woods on both sides, armed men taking positions. Dozens of them. Maybe more. This wasn't a kidnapping attempt. This was an execution. Marco, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. We can't win this. We're not giving up. I'm not suggesting we give up. I'm suggesting we negotiate. He stared at me. You can't be serious. Vittorio wants leverage over Dante. If I surrender, he gets what he wants without killing everyone.